Okay, we are rolling. We are back, brother. Champions of Champions boxing talk here. Do you know I actually forgot? We've got a pretty significant fight coming up in, just real fast and furious now. May 4th. May 4th, Canelo Alvarez v Daniel Jacobs. That is a very intriguing matchup for multiple reasons. Time really does fly. I just didn't realise. This really is a pay-per-view level fight. Not on pay-per-view, if that makes sense. You've got two fighters here with tremendous power. Both quick. I think Canelo's speed has improved a little bit as he's getting older. Danny Jacobs is known for having, good reflexes. Very good, upper body movement, footwork, all of that stuff. Canelo has some very fast hands. When somebody is still in front of Canelo and he is allowed to put combinations together, he reminds me of Juan Manuel Marquez. Boom, 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 and something will get through if you stay there long enough. Sort of Pacquiao's like that a little bit as well. But I think Pacquiao can hit moving more than Canelo can, but you get the picture. Canelo is a very good counterpuncher to me as well. He excels when opponents force the issue, i.e. pressure fighters. Even against Gennady Golovkin, Canelo did have his successes no matter which way you scored the fight. I personally felt Gennady Golovkin edged him out in both fights. The first fight was clear to me, 8-4. The second fight was a close affair, but I had it 7-5. But still I could see that is the style that Canelo thrives with. Had Gennady Golovkin been more elusive, perhaps Canelo wouldn't have been able to close the gap in terms of, making it the fight a close affair, particularly in that second one. Gennady Golovkin, of course, will fight you toe-to-toe. And Canelo was able to get inside and back him up because Gennady Golovkin likes to fight. Gennady Golovkin, this is where he sort of let his advantage go. With his long-reaching jab, had he kept constantly on the back foot, not maybe exchanging in like a phone booth style fight with Canelo, where he was receiving big body punches. Gennady Golovkin is like a machine. He's very difficult to hurt. But Canelo was able to get in some shots. But had Gennady Golovkin been at a distance and used footwork, foot speed, which I'm not saying he necessarily has, but you get the picture of this, Canelo Alvarez would have found it much more difficult to find him. And he did land some uppercuts, Canelo Alvarez, as well. But Gennady Golovkin was there to be hit. Danny Jacobs has faster feet than Gennady Golovkin. See, styles make fights. He, to me, I don't think he's necessarily got better timing than Golovkin. I think Golovkin's timing is excellent. Golovkin is sort of sometimes mistaken for an all-out brawler. He's actually not. He actually hits you with measured punches, measured jabs, things of that nature. Very little is wasted with Gennady Golovkin. He's like an offensive Floyd Mayweather, if that makes sense. Floyd Mayweather on the back foot doesn't waste punches. He catches you, and he catches you true and clean. Golovkin is like that, but on an offensive front. Accurate. He could have done with throwing a bit more volume to get Canelo Alvarez off. But that didn't happen. But you see, the thing is, with Danny Jacobs, he has the ability to move around the ring, to use good ring coverage, to have good feet, fast feet, to have fast hands. Again, I'm not saying they're as accurate as Golovkin's, but I think they're arguably a little quicker. Does he waste a few more shots to me than Golovkin? Sure, I think he does. Is he as measured as Golovkin? As I've said, I don't think he is. Does he have a good jab? Yes, he does. Does he have the ability, Danny Jacobs, to throw combinations himself? Yes, he does. Does he have the ability to stand there in the fire and fight? Yes, he does. We've seen Danny Jacobs have a very good fight with Gennady Golovkin, but doing that with Canelo Alvarez is a mistake. Danny Jacobs in this fight, and I'm going to go back to the Derevyanchenko fight, if I've pronounced his name correctly there, and that guy is a very good fighter. But if you watch that fight with Danny Jacobs, when he was at a distance, and again on that reach, he had the fight where he wanted it. But he was taking sort of time on the ropes and letting Derevyanchenko, throw volume at him, trying to hit head and body. And in the end, we ended up with Danny Jacobs winning by a majority decision. Now, I thought Danny Jacobs won that unanimously, but I could see where the judges got confused. Danny Jacobs was taking rests on the ropes, and he let Derevyanchenko come in close, which Derevyanchenko had to do, and he likes to do, and he was able to get some work done. If you look at Sean Porter's last fight, he got his distance wrong. See, boxing is about getting your distance right. Sean Porter was at a distance and he was getting jabbed and jabbed and jabbed and hit with long arms, and that made the fight a close affair in his last outing. But what Danny Jacobs did with Derevyanchenko was let him come in close, which that is where Derevyanchenko is good. Now, of course, Danny Jacobs can avoid punches when he's up against the ropes very well. But when you're there, you're giving the judges the impression you're being outworked, right? He can't do that against Canelo Alvarez because Canelo Alvarez right now is a better fighter than Derevyanchenko. And he's a much more experienced fighter. He will not miss every shot he throws if you are in range. Watch the Floyd Mayweather fight. Mayweather did his bit, landed his punches, and was gone before he knew Canelo could respond. And when Canelo did respond, notice something. Floyd Mayweather very rarely in that fight gave up the centre of the ring. So when you're blocking punches at the centre of the ring, it looks like you are engaging to the judges. It doesn't look like you are backing up and being outworked. And it can psychologically, and this is the key in that Mayweather fight with Canelo, psychologically, it says to a judge that the guy that is throwing the punches is having no effect on you because you're right there in front of him, parrying everything. So when you land your one crisp one after their combination, it is like a tick. Bingo. You're not affecting him, and you've just landed a counter shot perfectly. Spot on, right? Had Floyd Mayweather gone to the ropes, it gives a different impression. It gives the impression, even though Floyd might want to be there, that Canelo Alvarez has somehow forced him there through pressure. See, you've got to get the perception of your fight and strategy right. See what I'm saying? Notice the rounds that Manny Pacquiao won against Floyd Mayweather. What were they? The ropes, the times Floyd went up against the ropes, right? But Danny Jacobs lost rounds to Derevyanchenko in the eyes of the judges because Danny Jacobs gave away his reach advantage, his spatial advantage, his size, and allowed the bull to come in and try at least to give a phone booth fight. Against Canelo, Danny Jacobs, he has the attributes to move all night, right? He has the range to keep Canelo at a distance. Canelo he's got the same problems now he's always got, unless we see a different Canelo. We could, he's only young and he could be a developing fighter still. He's only just coming to his peak. But let me say this. If it's the same Canelo Alvarez we've always seen, he struggled with movers. Mayweather, Lara, those two examples in particular. Miguel Cotto actually troubled Canelo, not with necessarily his fighting skills, but with his movement of feet, right? Canelo Alvarez is not Marcus Maidana. Maidana knows how to cut a ring off better than Canelo, in my opinion. That has always been Canelo's Achilles heel. If Danny Jacobs can keep Canelo at a distance, right, use his speed in and out, keep that range, don't rest on the ropes. If you have to defend, defend centrally in the ring. He could have some big success in this fight. But if Danny Jacobs decides to stay still with Canelo Alvarez, because he's the taller man, his body is leaner down below. Canelo Alvarez is the stockier, bulkier fighter. Canelo Alvarez is as good a puncher, arguably, as Jacobs. And again, he's accurate. Even though he's a combination puncher, he's not wasteful. Danny Jacobs, if he stays still like that, against the ropes, will receive a body punishing night. Let's just put it that way. He will be bulldozed to that body. And what happens then? When you've took 6 rounds and here and there you've took body shots, the remaining 6, you lose your mobility. Then you are stiller than you could be if you avoided them shots. The way you avoid them shots is by constant, perpetual motion, movement, distance. Jacobs has the jab, he has the range, he has the speed, he has to use it. But if Canelo weathers that body in the first 6 rounds, Danny Jacobs is going to be right in front of Canelo, where he wants you to be. Where Liam Smith was, right? Right in front of him, tailor-made for Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez does not like chasing fighters around the ring. Now, you've got to move in a way that doesn't make you look like you're running, because Lara got no credit for constantly moving against Canelo. Steve Farhood of Showtime had Lara winning that fight by a couple of rounds at least. The judges didn't see it that way. They didn't appreciate the cunningness, the defensiveness of Lara, right? So, Danny Jacobs is going to have to dominate, or shall we say, yeah, well, he'll have to dominate, but he will have to use his punches and his jab and his speed quite a considerable distance away from the ropes. The ropes will not do Danny Jacobs any favours, as I've said in this fight. But if he can be sort of stood there, as Mayweather was, centrally in the ring, and be landing that jab, keeping Canelo at bay, and moving in spurts, that's where he's in business. Moving in spurts, moving back when it's safe to do so. Because I don't think Canelo's foot speed is up to Danny Jacobs' foot speed. Jacobs must study that Mayweather fight. I know he's not Floyd Mayweather. Very few, there's only one Floyd Mayweather. But he does have some of the things Floyd possesses. As I said, foot speed, a great reach. Floyd Mayweather, for his size, has a humongous reach, and he used it against Canelo. Only late on in the fight, when the fight, well, according to Floyd, I don't know how it was called a majority decision, but to everyone in the world with sense, the fight was already wrapped up by round 10 and 11. Only then, really, did you see Floyd take, some subtle rest on the ropes. But early on, he was there because he knew he could handle Canelo's hand speed with his defense, and Canelo could not handle his foot speed or his hand speed. And Jacobs has more pop on his punches than Floyd Mayweather. Why? He's a bigger man. He's a middleweight. Right? There are big lessons to be learned watching that fight. Pride got in the way in the Derevyanchenko fight for Danny Jacobs. He got macho at times. Right? Against Gennady Golovkin, being too defensive sort of cost Jacobs. But I don't think it would so much against Canelo. Why? Because when you back off too much against Gennady Golovkin, you are at the end of his punches, right? Canelo's arms are shorter. He's more compact. Do you see what I'm saying? So, for Canelo, he has to get some bodywork in early. Otherwise, he could look very awkward chasing shadows. And I'm not going to talk about judges. If this is a close fight, we sort of know where it's going to go, don't we? But if it's a close fight, and Danny Jacobs, or if Danny Jacobs wins a close-ish fight, that's great. That still does good things for Danny Jacobs' reputation. It will also bring up again the question mark, has Canelo really adjusted? See, he fought very well on the inside against Golovkin. He didn't back up as he did in the first fight. But as I said, Golovkin is not really a natural mover, right? What is he going to be like with Danny Jacobs, who will move? The problem is Danny Jacobs may stay still. I've seen that from him in a few fights. And that may be his downfall in this fight. It's a tough one to call for me, because if it's a close one, I think Canelo gets it. But if Canelo doesn't win convincingly, then question marks about his ability to adjust to great moving fighters and quick, fleet-footed fighters remains. He sort of had to wait for Amir Khan to slow down if you watch that fight. Now, a quicker-footed fighter, and I think we'll see it in the Terence Crawford fight, could sort of close the space down on Amir Khan when they feel like it. Canelo couldn't do it. He sort of waited very patiently and timed Amir Khan. Can Canelo Alvarez hurt Danny Jacobs? Yes, he can, to head and body. I think he can. Alright, you may not rate Rocky Fielding. He's a better fighter than advertised, by the way. But Canelo Alvarez's body took out a super middleweight there. It did. This is why Jacobs can't afford that body work. To the head, yes, he can hurt you. He really, really can. However, Danny Jacobs has a good knockout ratio himself. Can he hurt Canelo? Well, that second Golovkin fight was a hellacious war. And Rocky Fielding really didn't tell us, how Canelo is after that fight, because he spent more time on the canvas than he did fighting, let's be honest. We will see if those two fights with Golovkin had any effect on Canelo in this match. And getting hit by Golovkin, and Canelo took those shots tremendously well in that second fight. But I felt he was buzzed late on a little bit. Is his punch resistance dimmed a little bit? Will Danny Jacobs find that? Or has it just toughened Canelo up and made him a greater fighter still? We could end up with a scenario in this fight where Canelo has adjusted to movers. And he times them. Instead of hunting them, he sort of watches their movement, knows the rhythm, and then fights from there. That could be the case. Danny Jacobs may find that he fights the best version ever of Canelo Alvarez come May 4th. And if he meets the best of Canelo Alvarez, the best ever, I think the best ever version, because I still think Canelo can get a little bit better. I think a couple of percent higher of what Canelo is already, beats this current version of Danny Jacobs. If he makes that adjustment of dealing with boxers a little bit better than he's done in the past, particularly boxers that move and can move well and defend well, right? At 32, I'm not sure Danny Jacobs is getting any better. I think we've seen the best of him in the Golovkin fight. That was the best version of Jacobs for me. I could be wrong. He may raise his game. He could do. It wouldn't surprise me. He may raise his game like never before in this fight. Let's face it. It looked like a six-round job for Golovkin when he met Jacobs. Everybody, myself included, thought he would steamroll Jacobs at some point, because Jacobs did look more vulnerable against past opponents. But sometimes fighters raise to the level of their competition. And on that night, Danny Jacobs shown he's world class. He's an elite fighter in the middleweight division, a big player. He may do that again come May 4th. And if he fights like that you see, that style will work more against this version of Canelo that we've seen. That style will work more than it did against Golovkin. Because again, Golovkin has the reach to pick you when you're at the edge of the ropes or when you're moving. Canelo has to get a little bit closer. You see what I'm saying? Distance matters. Styles make fights. If I had to pick right now, wow, I mean, Danny Jacobs has all the style advantages. He does. From the Canelo we've seen so far in his career, Danny Jacobs is not necessarily a better fighter. I rate Canelo a better fighter. But stylistically, Jacobs does have the style advantages. But we've seen Jacobs surrender them. He can't afford to surrender them. If he surrenders them, hanging on the ropes too long, again, I know I'm making this point over and over and over again, but it's a fact. He just can't be there, and he can't stay still in front of Canelo longer than he should. He does not need to get greedy. He needs to keep that thing at range. Use the footwork. Let Canelo sort of chase him, but not chasing him along the ropes, because that will give the judges impressions. It's difficult to beat Canelo on the scorecards. But if I'm picking one right now, Jacobs should win, but I don't think he will. You know what I mean? This sounds stupid. Jacobs should win. But you see, the thing about Canelo, even in some of his fights where he has won clearly, he has sometimes gone in the ring with an opponent that style-wise you think, oh no. The Cotto fight, for instance, I thought Cotto's feet would give him mayhem, and it did at times, but you know, he found a way to win. Canelo is a guy that finds a way to win. Take away the controversy, right, and just look at the fairness of it. You know, even in the fair bouts, Khan had the speed and all that stuff. Canelo still found a way to find that punch. Cotto moved like heck, and Cotto was still moving well in the 12th round, and he found a way to win. The problem is when he met Floyd Mayweather, is he also met a guy that has all of that stuff, but always finds a way to win. So he couldn't overcome that. But that is the only official blemish so far. Gennady Golovkin, I thought Canelo lost to him. But Canelo found a way to give a good account of himself when it looked at times like Golovkin may be getting ahead of steam. And at times it looked like Canelo was getting ahead of steam, but Golovkin found a way back. See, these two fighters, they sort of mirror each other that way. Different styles, I know. But in terms of determination, you get the picture. Danny Jacobs, it's the ring IQ. That's the word I'm looking for. It's the ring IQ. Lara sometimes didn't realise he was giving up too much space. The ring IQ did not set in. But Mayweather has the ring IQ to know, I don't want to be looking too defensive here. I want to block, but I want to be there in the pocket to land my shots. Right? Jacobs has to have that ring IQ. If that ring IQ is lacking fight night and he doesn't put these dots together, no matter how many physical attributes you've got, you will lose to Canelo Alvarez. Because when he's in front of you, he knows the sport. He has a ring IQ. He has a Marquez-level ring IQ. Right? But like Marquez, he relies on you to come forward. Constantly. I'm not saying be ultra defensive. What I'm saying is, if you've got the reach advantage, if you've got the speed advantage, if you've got comparable hand speed, if you've got good power and good legs, use it. You can't afford to switch off for a second against Canelo Alvarez. Danny Jacobs is going to have to fight the perfect match in this fight to win. And that's all I'm going to say. But I think Jacobs, style-wise, has the advantage over Canelo. Will he win? I'm edging towards Canelo because Canelo finds a way to win. He's just got it in his nature. And that's my take on it. So this is Champions of Champions Boxing Talk. I'm out, brother.